everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neurolinguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one sessions in both French or English and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DNB Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found on lifecoachdanamzalike.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our fifth episode of season 22, a very special guest and author of Great Expectation Today, Creating a Happier Life Filled with Greater Abundance, Mr. Darryl Tanner. And just like every of my past episodes, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Darryl, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. Appreciate it. I'm really excited to be on your show. A very informative show. I have been married for almost 47 years now. I've counseled youth in the past, and over the last several years, I've been counseling with 30 to 40 single co-eds in community therapy groups. And most of those groups talk about depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. But it's we build those groups in circles instead of rows, like in a church. So it's more of a community-based understanding and group of, hey, what are you dealing with today? What were your highs and lows of the week? And what's bothering you? And how can we help you in the coming weeks? So that's what we talk about. I was encouraged by my students last year to write a book on some of my ideas and thoughts on battling depression and anxiety and things like that. And I wrote a book on Amazon called Great Expectations Today by D. Tanner. And, it's helped a lot of people. And any of the proceeds from that book, profits, go to the benevolence fund at our church. So it's a single mothers fund and people in dire need. So it helps them get through life in maybe some simple ways.
Beautiful. Well, Darryl, thank you so much for being here today. And the reason why I invited you is obviously because you practice in the same field as I am, which is dealing with people who are experiencing chronic depression, anxiety, problem with their day-to-day life and not knowing how to be productive in society. So I guess you and I, we really work hand in hand and be able to help as many people as we possibly can. So thank you again for doing what you're doing. And so today we're going to basically speak or cover the topic of how do thoughts affect people's lives, because some of them who are always thinking that they're not good enough or they're not really valuable enough to society. And that obviously will bring them to allow those thoughts to control their actions and belief and so on and so forth, and obviously experience more hardship. So in your groups, how do you change people's mindset? How do you change their perspective to start thinking more positive?
Well, there are several issues. That's a great question, but it's a big area to cover because a lot of it depends on where people come from. We sometimes I'm dealing with someone that came from a pretty normal family, and sometimes I'm dealing with someone that's been homeless for a while, or someone that has one parent and it was a really nasty divorce and there was abuse involved in the situation. But now they're 30. They've maybe gotten through college and they're trying to work on this job that they're on right now, and they're trying to establish a life. And they're depressed or they're really anxious, and the first thing they think of is, a lot of times that fuels alcohol or drug addiction, and we discuss that. But I think one of the biggest things is everybody pays so much attention to society today to feel like that they need to be a part of what's going on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. What is hey, my brother's doing this, my sister's doing this, my friends are doing this. Why can't I do that? Why aren't I doing that? What's wrong with me? And it's really a minute or second by second glimpse of what's going on in the world around them, but they're not participating. That's their feelings.
Mhm.
However, if you really looked at the world as it is in reality, man, those people might be on the first vacation they've ever gone on, or the picture you're seeing is not really what they look like. It's like a lot of the 30s or 40s, they're using dating apps, so they're telling me, oh gosh, I went on this date, I was so depressed afterwards because the guy was he was like 15 years older, and he sent me a picture from like right out of high school. And he's gained so much weight and he's lost so much hair. I'm like, hey, be careful there. But it's the reality of the world is you're living in reality, but you're looking at dreams. You're looking at what people are putting out there second by second, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, and it's not real, or it's very seldom real. And you need to, instead of looking at those expectations, you need to lower your expectations to your life in reality and say, okay, I'm getting ready to go on this date. Uh, I'm gonna get in traffic. When I get in my car and I go downtown, I'm gonna get into traffic. Okay, that's one thing you need to be prepared for. So kind of, maybe an accident, maybe bad weather, lower your expectations. Okay, when you get there, the person may not show up. That happens a lot. Or they may show up and you kind of wish they didn't show up. So all I try to condition my groups to, hey, lower your expectations to, like, a lot of us live with expectations like we were kids. Oh right, it's Christmas, and running down and seeing the tree and imagining all these gifts and then seeing all these gifts maybe. Um, but like real life is not that way when you're an adult, and you're dealing with a lot of different obstacles or gates that you've got to open. And what I say is, you don't know what's behind door number one, door number two, door number three. And in the book I wrote, Great Expectations Today, what I said, I've told some of my real life stories of being young and very disappointed because my expectations were completely different from many of the things that happened to me.
Mhm.
Like one time, and I was going to the airport, and I thought, I mean, we were going to go on taking my wife to Toronto, and I had won an award trip, and the gate at the airport was locked down. It was broken, and I got out and tried to bend. And there's like 8 cars in front of me. I tried to bend the gate back, and what happened was it was a board and it broke off. And everybody's like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And the next thing I heard was a whistle, and I was being arrested for damaging property. And when they heard my story, they let me go, but we missed our flight. And my wife was crying, and you shouldn't have broke that. I didn't mean to break the gate. I was just trying to pull it back open. And any of those, or combination of those, disappointments with, none of my group members are married, but I've been married a long time. So I tell my wife, I said, hey, I don't need Google. I don't need to know how to park. I don't need to know how to drive. You're always with me. I learn all this thing. You tell me all this thing. So, but single people, they can get distracted, and they don't show up for certain things. And I just try to help them reset their expectations, and that will lead to a happier, more fulfilling life. Because hey, it's we never know what's going to happen when we're walking out the door. So
That is so true. But then, do you think that people may misconstrue lower expectation by settling? Which,
no.
if I lower my expectation, I will settle for less, and that will not repair. They will have resentment.
That's a great question, but in real life, I mean, the only time that you would be disappointed by settling is if somebody said, is if you just kept settling for the same paycheck and never asked for a raise. That's completely different. You go in and you ask for a raise, that knowing that you've got some proof behind you that you've earned a raise, but to set your expectations that, hey, you may not get a raise, uh, but your employer should look at you and go, you know what? Hey, D came in here and he asked for a raise, and he wants to go places. He's got a plan. He's helping us. He's adding value, and you've got to show him that value. But as far as settling for something lower in life, well, the reason they're usually depressed or anxious is because they've been trying to settle for something so high that it's just not real. I mean, nobody's going to go clear the freeway for you to drive downtown because you're going on a date. There's going to be traffic. There could be an accident, anything. That's why we have cases of road rage. I mean, I live in San Antonio. We call it Military City. There are a lot of people that have PTSD here, and it's sad, but it's a case of, we thank them for their service, but they come back from a war zone with a lot of issues. They don't want to be around firecrackers, for one thing, that's for sure. I've been in a crowd of people when a car backfired, and then I see 2 or 3 guys hit the ground. So, they carry that scar with them, and we have PTSD recovery groups, but it's, they know not to set their expectations too high, but any little thing could set them off.
Mhm.
And I tell, in one of my stories, I think I tell the story of taking my family to a movie theater, and we were running late because everybody's so excited to go to the movie, but nobody's ready to go. Typical family. So I rushed to the theater. I said, hey, I forget, it was like some, it was a silly, like a cartoon thing for the kids, and I said, hey, y'all get out and go in and get the tickets. I'll park. And when I was trying to get everybody out of the car, somebody locked the door as all the doors closed. And so there was my car, not in the way of anyone, but kind of in the way, because, most people, I mean, there was plenty of room to go around me, but all the doors were locked and the car was running. So I went into the theater manager and I said, oh, I am so sorry. I have never done this before, and I didn't really do it. Some of my family did, but and she goes, oh, hey, don't worry about it. You wouldn't believe how many people have done this. And it's usually the dads that come in and, they got locked out by some kid hitting but a guy came in with a parking, and he parked in the disabled lot spot. But he came in cussing like a sailor, and he was really mad. And he was on his truck, it said veteran, handicapped, all these things. Well, all he did was drive around me. But he came in cussing. He goes to the manager. He goes, "You the manager?" He goes, "There's some SOB parked in right up front, and I had to drive around him. I had to wait for traffic." And I was watching the guy. He didn't wait for anything, but he was mad. And she didn't even look at me. She just said, "Sir, they've locked their keys in the car. We've called for a locksmith." He goes, "Well, that SOB shouldn't even be allowed in the theater." And he just went on and on. And she looked at me and just shook her head no, like, don't even get involved. And she said, we have, we occasionally get somebody in here with anger issues. And I said, yeah, but he was a vet that served and probably got a reason for that. And,
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
but there you go, anger because of misset expectations. He thought, the road should be cleared for him to get to the movie and and then he didn't even go in the movie, but he was an hour early for the movie. He went to the bar, and I'm thinking, oh, that's great. Little alcohol on top of your anger.
Yes.
And then I heard him talking to the bartender, and he goes, "If I catch that SOB, I'm going to kick his butt." I'm thinking, you don't even know what's going on.
Oh my God.
So,
but this is what we people should expect, how other people behave. So then
yes.
it goes back exactly to your point, Darryl, is that a lot of people kind of think that because you're good natured, that everyone else is going to be good natured. This is not really the case, unfortunately. So you're always in road rage. A lot of people get killed every single year because
Yes.
someone just like either they cut them about driving, and then the other person will not let go. They will fight. They will smash them, whatever it is. So all this just shows you how mental illness has affected our society, especially during the pandemic. And now it just accentuated more and more issues that we see on a daily basis when it comes to people not knowing how to manage their feelings, manage their anger, manage their frustration, whatever it is, and end up putting people in danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
but now when it comes to the group that you're dealing with, Darryl, what would you say is the most common denominator when it comes to mental illnesses or challenges that they face on a daily basis? Because obviously, people don't like to feel alone in their misery. Okay, so they feel like okay, am I the only one who's experiencing this? Am I the only one who's dealing with this type of depression or this type of anger? Am I the only one who's bipolar or who's borderline personality or narcissistic? So what are the things that you see on a day-to-day basis during your group session?
I'd say the common denominator for my group, and I've started about over 25 groups now that I continue to watch and maintain with an app called GroupMe as they're communicating with each other. But the single most thing is that they're all single. Okay. So either they were married before and divorced now, or they've never been married. Some of them have kids and some of them don't. But even if they're divorced and have kids, they're going to get them like every other week or maybe every other weekend.
Right.
So they're mostly alone, and they're having to fight their battles alone, and that's why they come and join the group. I mean, I'll give you a real simple connection: is that even Jesus had his disciples. Okay, so he even had a group. Yeah, he could talk to his father. He could talk to God, and he did a lot. Prayed in the wilderness, he prayed and prayed and prayed. But he had the disciples, and he shared with them, and they shared with him, and they shared with each other. And the big thing, the big success factor I see in group is, and I'll tell you what, I couldn't paint a picture of any person that would do good in a group. Sometimes they come to the group, they join the group, and then they leave the group. And I'm thinking, oh, that's too bad. I'm not going to see them again. Well, then next, we start a group every season. So spring, summer, fall, winter, we start a thing called Group Link, where we call people, whoever wants to be in a group.
Okay.
And that community, they lock into those friendships, and whatever we say in the group stays in the group. It's confidential. And we discuss our highs and our lows of the week, and we discuss. I just listen and let them talk, and then we don't try to solve anything. We just talk about it. And then, like, if somebody's sick and they need a meal, they just put on GroupMe. Man, boy, I've been so sick. Well, normally one or two of the members will say, "Can I bring you by something? Can I bring you a meal or something?" And it's so helpful. I mean, I had a young lady come to me the other day, and she was crying to the point of, like, I just had to ask her, have you had any thoughts of suicide? Because that's the last thing I want. She lost her dog, and she had had that dog for 8 years, and she was single, and it just crushed her. And I felt so bad for her, because I had a dog for 14 years that we lost, and we were pretty sad about it. But it's a member of your family, and the group surrounded her with love, and kind of talked her down of, but she said, everywhere I go in my apartment complex, I see people walking their dog, they're playing with their dog out at the pool. They have their dog, and we've got this pet area, which I look right out my back window. I can see the pet area. I see the dogs that used to play with my dog. I mean, it's things like that the singles, they just don't have. They don't have that
Support.
and they need someone to talk to. They need someone to balance everything out with, and even feedback. Like, my boss is driving me nuts. I don't know what I'm going to do, or I'm really feeling down today. I don't know why, but it's good to get those things out and discuss them. Let the group talk to you about them. Let the group pray with you, whatever. Console you and show you that there's love and there's support in this group. So, but the common denominator is, they're single. And, when COVID hit, the suicide rates skyrocketed during COVID. Because, I've got friends, I live in San Antonio, but I have friends all over the US, North America. And, my friends in Chicago are like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm used to going out every night. A couple nights a week, I may go to the gym, but I usually go to a bar, or I usually go to a club and see my friends and hang out, go to a game. We can't do anything. I don't know what we're going to do. So during that time frame, a lot of singles went out and bought animals to be in their apartment with, just so they'd have some company. And of course, now the animal shelters are full, because people are like, I can get out now. I don't need to come home to a dog. I don't need the responsibility. But drug abuse and alcoholism went sky high. It was a terrible time for our country. I don't think anybody could have ever seen it coming, but you know, it's they were alone and they were scared.
And even those who were as a couple ended up after the pandemic subsided to be able to divorce because they realized spending 24/7 with the same person, it kind of open up your eyes and see that whatever image you had of that person is completely different to reality. So
Yeah,
maybe you put them into a pedestal and they realize that they should not be on that pedestal.
yeah. I know. I told my wife, I said, you can read so much, you can exercise so much, you can watch so much TV, but in the end, you have to be able to either appreciate or support your spouse.
Mhm.
We played hours and hours of my daughter's close by and grandkids, and we played hours and hours of Monopoly and cards, and then my wife and I learned how to play gin with each other and spades and some card games that we'd never played before. But I mean, it was tough. It was tough for everybody. And if you were single, man, staring at the walls and not having anybody to talk to or communicate with, I guarantee you, if you had friends and you were smart, you'd find some way to get with your friends.
Yes.
I mean, because I mean, we weren't communist China. I mean, we weren't going to shoot you for going over and being with your friends. But it's just one of those things.
So now, where do you see now because of how people look too much into social media and compare themselves too much about how the other person is doing so well, and even though it's not a real situation, how do you tell them to separate themselves from that? How to tell them that this is your life, this is not theirs, and whatever they're doing is not, it does not really show a certain reality of how their life it really is. So how do you tell them to separate themselves from comparing themselves to others?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, we're kind of almost brought up and raised as children to, I mean, my parents were really great parents. I mean, they said, hey, you know, they used to say, I used to say, I'm gonna go to Billy's, man. Billy, he gets to stay up, he gets to watch all these shows, and he goes, and they would always say, "You're not Billy. We're not Billy's folks. You're not Billy." So I mean, there is some reality of saying, okay, I can't be everybody. I mean, one of the biggest sins in the Bible is envy, to want to be someone else, to want something else that someone else's has. That will ruin your life, and we talk about that quite a bit. I will name one other book if I can as a resource, but I facilitate a class at my church called Safe People, and it's by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. It is such a great course. Safe People teaches you, number one, to help you look inside yourself to say, am I a safe person? In other words, do I yield fruit to my friends, or do I only call them when I want something?
Mhm.
Do I only call them if I need a ride? Do I only call them when I'm sick? Do I ever ask them about them? So if you're yielding fruit to others, then you're a blessing. And there's a lot to be said about that, because your heart opens up and you're a blessing and you're happier blessing other people's. And that's kind of how I talk to my groups is, if you're never going to be good in a group if you're as you said, the narcissist. If it's only about me and that's all I want to, whatever, if you got a story and I got a bigger one, any story you got, my story's bigger, my story's better, my story's worse. And, it's all about you versus, the other people. So, I mean, I always ask people, and I say, the Safe People course goes through, and the book goes through, what are you testing when you're looking at safe people? You're testing their character.
Mhm.
And how do you test someone's character? You test it over time. In other words, how do they react when they're in traffic? They go, oh, I'm going to shoot that, that's a big, or, oh yeah, they must be in a hurry. They could have a family emergency or something. That's why I got over, they're patient, they're loving, they're kind. How do they treat the waiter or the waitress? man, I had some friends in my neighborhood who we thought were friends, but we went out to dinner with them one time, and the wife yelled at the waitress over something pretty petty. She said, ask for more ice in her glass. She said, I'd like a lot of ice, please. So the girl comes back with half a glass of ice, and she goes, does that look like a lot of ice to you? I mean, seriously, don't you know how much ice can fit in this glass? She said, I'm very sorry, ma'am, but our ice machine's broken. And
Okay.
that shut her up. And she goes, well, when you get some time, please bring me some more ice. And I'm like, man. And I told my wife, we're not going out. They can be an acquaintance, but they're not friends, and we're not going to go out with them anymore. But I mean, that shows you, you've really got to. I tell my groups, you've really got to look at the people in your life. We teach another course called Boundaries, where how do you set your boundaries? And you have to set boundaries. You can't say yes to everything, because then you're late, you're overcommitted. You're late because you're overcommitted. You're running from one thing to another. You're going crazy. You would like to check out every once in a while because you've committed to too much stuff. And you've got boundaries you need to set with your family. Like your mom says, okay, you just got married. You're coming over to our house for every Christmas. And there's a lot of things that teach you about your when you get married. Like in the Bible, it says you will no longer cleave to your mother and father. You will step forward with your spouse, your wife, and you'll build a new life. Now, you may decide, like I did, and my wife and I did. We did it kind of a friendly church way. We said, hey, we'll rotate holidays. We'll go to your mom's house on Thanksgiving, and then mine to Christmas, and then switch it the next year.
Correct.
And everybody's happy, but because the grandparents want to see the grandkids and things like that, want to see your kids, and you want to see them. So that's safe people, boundaries. We also teach a class called Changes That Heal, and these are all by Dr. John Cloud and Dr. Henry Cloud, Dr. John Townsend. And just great books for learning maybe what's wrong, maybe how you can adjust in life to be happier, maybe looking at the people you hang around. Like they did a prison interview about 8 years ago, and they said, why do you feel like you're in prison?
Mm-hmm.
They said, other than blaming your own foolish mistakes, why do you feel like you're in prison? And I think it was like 70 or 80% of the inmates said, I hung around with the wrong friends.
Mm-hmm.
So that might tell you that you might want to always evaluate, your friends, and maybe where you met them, maybe do they yield? Are they bearing any fruit for you? Not being selfish, because you need to bless them also if you're going to be a safe person, but again, so
before we conclude this podcast, where can people find your book? You say it's on Amazon, and where can they also access your course? Are your courses or your group meeting, are they virtual or they're in person only?
Yeah, they're in person only. I teach them at our church here in San Antonio, Community Bible Church, or CBC. We're a non-denominational church. My book is on Amazon, Great Expectations Today by D. Tanner. And if anybody wants to access me and ask me a question, I'd be glad to at dtanner03@yahoo.com.
And you have 4 groups per year, is that correct? So one every season.
Well, yeah, I start, sometimes I start 2 groups during a season, but no more than 2 groups. There's about 8 to 10 people per group.
Okay.
And sometimes we have people that need to change because of schedules, and we rotate them out and put them in another group. And but it's all confidential, and just a great way that you can personally grow.
So. And they have to be single.
Yes, it's a single co-ed group. Yeah, and then we do have married groups, but I do not counsel or facilitate those groups. Mine is 20 to 30, because my daughter was, I don't know, in her early 30s when she went through a pretty nasty divorce, and I chose to really focus on these groups, or this age group, because they need a lot. They can use a lot of help with counsel, especially when they're single.
Absolutely. Well, Darryl, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. And thank you again for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible journey. Now, we hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode. And I'm also very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 22 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories just like the one that you listened today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. Embrace each day as a canvas, painting your life with joyous stroke of gratitude and purpose. Cultivate a mindset of abundance, seeking opportunities where others see obstacles. Invest in self-care, nurturing your mind, body, and spirit to radiate positivity. Surround yourself with uplifting souls who fuel your growth and celebrate your journey. Take bold steps towards your dreams, knowing that each action aligns you closer to abundance. Trust in the universe's infinite possibilities, believing that you are deserving of all the blessing it offers. Remember, the key to a happier life lies from within, where your intention blossom into reality by expecting greater things starting today. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.